Hello class, welcome to today's lesson. My name is Dr. Susan Macharia from the School of Education, Department of Educational Psychology and Technology. The unit is Human Growth and Development and the code BEP 1102. We've learned so many things about the unit so far. We started with an introduction. At least you have a rough idea what to cover or what to expect in the unit. We have also done something about the methods of research on how you can be able to collect or generate research findings in the area of human growth and development using their scientific method. And in the last lecture, we discussed 3 methods, one of which was cross-sectional, longitudinal, and cross-cultural. So today, I want us to be able to talk about the issues of concern in human growth and development. So when you talk of human growth and development, at least we've been able to unpack or to understand a bit deeply the concept of human growth and development, or basically the concept of development and the different aspects of the same. And this human growth and development is a special area within the study of psychology or human behavior. And when we say it's a special area, then what should come to our minds then is that it has specific things that it tries to study, so that for it to be termed a special area within psychology. And that as a special area is what we are calling the issues of concern in human growth and development. A very important topic to us, because somebody might ask you, when you study human growth and development, you study so much about development, but what are the issues? What are the concerns that you have been studying and you can't be able to answer? So this lecture is supposed to help you understand or learn about the issues that are of concern to human growth and development. And at the end of the lecture, you'll be able to do at least 3 things. 1, you'll be able to analyze key issues in human growth and development. And for this lecture, they are 4. So we won't be able to say what are the 4 issues and how each of them pertains to human development. We'll also be able to move to the next section. You have heard about theories everywhere. I want us to be able to unpack that concept of theories, because for us to be able to understand human development, we are going to be guided by some of the theories. And we'll unpack a few. We'll unpack that concept of the theories. And after unpacking the concept of the theories, we'll be able to say something about what makes a good theory to help you explain a separate aspect of human development. And then thirdly, we'll be able to see something about the role of maturation. Remember, in another lecture, we have been mentioning the word maturation on, off every other time. So we'll be able now to see what is this thing that we talk of maturation and what is this thing they are calling the theory of maturation. So we have got 3 things that I want us to be able to learn. Now, in terms of the issues that are of central focus to human growth and development, they are 4. And let's get the 4. Number 1, we have the nature versus nurture. We are going to look at that more deeply in this lesson. We'll see something about the role of culture. So the second issue is to do with the role of culture. The next issue of concern to human growth and development is the role of gender. And then the 4th issue is stability versus change. Now let's look at the first issue of our concern. That's the nature versus nurture. Now, what is this issue all about? Class, this issue of nature-nurture is one of the oldest items to be included in the psychological debate ever since from the oldest times. And nature refers to the genetic makeup that is inherent in each and every individual. Those hereditary factors, those hereditary components that we receive from our parents at conception. And these are the ones that inform our physical characteristics and our personality. Nurture refers to all the environmental influences or variables that affect the way we develop. So when it comes to the issue here, we are asking ourselves, what controls or what has more significance on our development? Is it the genes that we receive from our parents, or is it the nurture, the environment within where that individual grows and develops? That is the question. Therefore, philosophers, for us to be able to understand whether it is nature or nurture, we have to borrow a leaf from our ancient mentors or thinkers. Some people call them philosophers in psychology too. And these are the people whose ideas has shaped the way we view human development. And the first one, we talk of Plato. Plato came from Greece. And Descartes. They hold the view that certain things are inborn and that genetic traits are handed down from parents that influence the individual differences that we observe in each person. So Plato and a psychologist by the name of Descartes are the people who support the fact that nature or our inborn characteristics are the ones that are responsible for how we grow and develop, and our different characteristics that we show or we communicate when we are in the environment. Genetic traits are handed down from the parents, and this influence the individual differences that make each person different. So that's the nature part. Another psychologist by the name of John Locke, who lived around 1600 there, BC, 1600 AD, believed that it is the environment that shapes our behavior or our development. And for him, he talked about tabula rasa, which means that at the point of birth, our human mind, which controls the way we interact and behave, or our uniqueness, is blank. And therefore, he talked of he talked of the mind being a blank slate. And according to him, it is the environmental influences that write on the mind or fill that blank slate. And after that slate has been filled, then it impacts on our interaction with the environment. And therefore, for an example, let's consider something that you might have observed in your classroom. Academic success. A student seems to be doing well. And therefore, you ask a question. What makes this student do well? Is he coming from a family that has genetic characteristics that make him a bright child? Or is it the favorable, enabling environment in our school that accounts for this? Or is it the interaction of the two? And that's why we are talking about nature, nurture. So, the students do not come to the classroom empty. They have genetic characteristics. The environment supports the unfolding of their genetically determined characteristics. Another example, consider the case of an aggressive student in the school. We have a bully, a student who is always fighting other students. So we ask ourselves, this aggressive behavior can be attributed to what? Is it that the parents are bullies themselves? Did they give him a gene that makes him bully other students? Or is this bullying behavior acquired from the environment or from the society? Or is it the interaction of both? That's the question. And therefore we see when it comes to nature and nurture, we see the interaction of inborn characteristics with environmental influences to shape our uniqueness. The next thing that I want us to be able to discuss is the second issue, issue number 2, role of culture. And human development takes place within a given cultural context. And you know, culture is our way of life. What our beliefs are, our practices, our way of doing things. And culture affects the human being. And because child development is dynamic and interactive process, every child is unique and interacts with the world around them. And we see that this environment shapes the way they think and behave. So when the child is still young, they are growing within a certain environment. There are those things that we always do as the children observe. And it makes them part of our culture, of their culture. And therefore, this culture shapes their personality and shapes the way they grow and develop. And therefore, we see children who grow up in different environments or cultures receive different inputs from their immediate environment. And that is why we see that there is difference in terms of cultural differences all over among our learners. For example, in terms of language, let's note that no child is born knowing a language. We'll see how the language acquisition is done in the course of the unit. But language is one of the many ways through which the culture affects development, as well as the child rearing practices. So how do we rear the children? What is it that we introduce to them that makes it part of their lifestyle and their interpretation of the world around them? If you show your child a different language, then it does not mean that he cannot learn another language if he moves to that kind of environment or catchment area. Now let's see. In terms of research to support this role of culture, we can see that researchers have posited that there are links between the way that the parents bring up their children and also the effects that these have on the children. Maybe by the time you join this class, you've been thinking that so long as your child is being fed and is sleeping and is growing, putting on weight, then that's all you need. But a number of researchers by the name of Diana Boomerid, Elena Macoby, John Martin, those are key psychologists in terms of child rearing practices, have suggested that if you want to know how the culture or the way the child is, the upbringing affects the uniqueness of the child, is that we have 4 types of parenting or child rearing practices. Number 1, we have authoritarian. You see, this authoritarian practice begins when the child is still little, when they are you are trying to feed them, when you are trying to show them morals, things to do, things not to do, where to visit the toilet, how to clean themselves. So that kind of the parenting is what gives rise now to the 4. Now, these authoritarian parents are dictators. In very short few words, they dictate. And therefore, the children know that they must comply with whatever the parent says. And if you have such a child in your classroom, he knows that whatever the teacher says must be done, no question, it is that way. So this one follows rules without questioning because that's how they were brought up. The other one is authoritative style. And here we see that the parents interact with their children in such a way that they train them to be assertive as well as to be self-regulated. So the children are able now to know what to do, when, and why. Vis-a-vis the other child who was brought up by an authoritarian parent, them they just comply. Permissive, on the other hand, suggests that parents rarely discipline their children and they have low expectations of maturity and self-control. So these children are just there. They're just growing like the way a tree would grow on its own without pruning, watering, and stuff. So when it is permissive, the parents doesn't even discipline. And remember, you're going to see this child in your class. A child who comes from a permissive parent, they were never trained on anything in terms of even self-control. So they'll be everywhere extremely indisciplined. So that's why they say, if you want to understand your child, go back and see how the parent-child interaction has been to shape their behavior. The other one is uninvolved. And this is where the parents offer little or nothing by way of guidance, structure, rules, and even support. Sometimes they neglect the needs of their children. And these children will be there in your classroom. So you have to understand that the way the child is brought up forms their culture. And once this culture has been shaped, you'll be able to see the differences in terms of the development of your learners in the classroom. The other one is to do with the role of gender. Number 3 is the role of gender. And under this one, we want to find out what is it that influences gender. Remember, there's a difference between sex and gender. Sex has got to do whether you are a boy or a girl. But when it is gender, it is to do with what we call a socially constructed characteristics that pertain to either male or female. And therefore, children develop within a certain set of gender-specific social behavioral norms, which are there in the family structure. And gender roles are influenced by also what is there that the child can be able to see around them. So if they notice, when they're in the family environment, they are able now to acquire the gender roles. And that is why sometimes you shall see a young boy who is about 3 years taking just his father's mobile phone, sitting on the chair, and just posing and calling, just as the way he saw the father do. And if the mobile phone is not there, he can take even a small something in the community, let's say even a piece of maize comb or maize itself, put around the ear and start posing. A girl will, on the other hand, take toys, just observe how the mother does to put the baby to sleep, sing some lullabies and all that, and so on. So these are things that they see around the family and they get socialized in the same. Now, you notice that by now I've talked about three issues of concern: nature versus nurture, gender, and culture. The fourth one, I'm planning to give you that as part of assignment, of course, for your research. Now, let's go to theories of development. Now, for us to be able to look about, to learn about theories of development, let's get to see what a theory is. Now, a theory is a coherent explanation or interpretation of a phenomenon of interest. What is a phenomenon? Hey, I'm using heavy words now. Now, a phenomenon is an occurrence or an event or something you have observed over a long time around your community. So when we say a theory is an explanation or interpretation of that, it just helps you to explain that which you have observed over a period of time. And therefore, sometimes when you talk of a theory, to make things even a bit easier for you to understand, we think about a theory consisting or comprising of small, coherent statements put together to be able to explain that which you have been observing over a period of time. That's what a theory basically is. And therefore, in the study of human development, we want to be able to see what makes a good theory. Because for most of these issues that we are going to talk about or aspects of development, there must be a theory to it or even two. So for you to be able to know what makes a good theory of human development, first, it must be unifying. How? In other words, it explains a great number of facts and observations within a single framework. So you don't want a theory that explains, that has so many small things until you get lost. You want something that is simple, coherent, explaining everything you want to learn about that aspect of development. Then it should be internally consistent. It means that once we develop that theory, there should be a way in which it fits. These small statements fit within each other. Not that you want to fit and they are disagreeing as you try to explain. It should also, in terms of taking their place within other theories that explain the same thing, they should just fit in. In other words, they should not deviate from what is already known or explained by other theories that are talking about the same aspect of development. Again, a good theory is supposed to do two things. First, it should be able to organize the observed facts and hypotheses to make them practical. And then a second thing is that a good theory should be able to, it should be simple. You can see this word here, parsimony. It should apply the principle of parsimony. You know, parsimony simply means that it should be using simple things to explain that which we are studying. So don't use complicated language and things to explain a simple thing. The simpler, the better. Then, from there, before we come to the theories now, why do we need to study theories in human growth and development? It's because they have a purpose, or purposes for that matter. There are four key purposes of theories in human growth and development as advanced by this researcher, 1986. Number one, it describes the conditions under which the phenomenon being studied occurs. So if you are studying cognitive development, where does it occur? How does it occur? Where does it occur? All that. Then, secondly, a theory sets the limits. It's like marking its boundaries, such that it is able to explain this and other things that are within that boundary, but outside of the boundary, it doesn't explain. Another theory can go and complete that section outside the boundary. And therefore, any theory that we have should set a boundary. Number three, it should also be able to give us the relationship. Remember, we said we have small statements, coherent statements that fit together. Now, here in number three, it suggests possible relationships between theoretical constructs, meaning that when we are using a theory, these small statements should be able to support each other, and we see how they are interconnected. Then number D, or number 4, it brings together an existing data into integrated, logically consistent body of knowledge. Of course, a good theory should be able to add to what is already known, and also at the same time to add value, to add value to what is known about that aspect of development. And therefore, one of the things that I want us to be able to learn today is the starting point of helping us to understand about how human development actually takes place. And the first one that is going to help us understand that is coming from a term I have mentioned over and over. That's the term maturation. Before I show you the theory, or I explain the theory, let me just help you to conceptualize the word maturation. Now, maturation is defined as the gradual unfolding of genetically determined characteristics, or the unfolding of the genetic plan of growth. So, upon conception, when the gametes are exchanged from the parents, then to form the zygote, then we see they bring with it a genetic plan of growth, and this just unfolds slowly, thereby bringing about development. And therefore, for us to be able to see how the development begins, then it simply means that it starts with the maturation, where these genetically determined characteristics simply begin unfolding, resulting in development. And for us to be able to understand this, let's look at a theory of maturation which was propounded by Arnold Gesell around 1925 to explain how maturation takes place. And according to him, development in the human organism is guided by the unfolding of what we are calling the individual's plan of growth. Using a fixed sequence, for example, we see the heart forming first in the embryo, then the central nervous system, and then the peripheral organs. And according to the theorist, he says that maturation is a product of the interaction between the genetic plan and the environment within where that individual grows and develops. And that is basically the theory of maturation made simple. There are principles of that theory, which I would want you to read about. But for you to understand maturation, we just want to see the genetically determined characteristics simply unfolding. So you might wonder, what is it that makes this plan unfold? So our conclusion, we can say that we have learned several things about the issues that are of concern to human growth and development. We have said about 4 issues. Let me take you through. We talked about nature and nurture. We talked about culture. We talked about gender. And lastly, stability and change. We have also said something about some theories of human development, and specifically the theory of maturation that was advanced by Arnold Gesell to help us explain how this maturation starts or goes. And that is how you are able now to see, in terms of feeding the child, after you feed the child, he grows bigger, he's able to walk because that plan is opening slowly. Lastly, I want you to do an assignment. 1, under the issues that we talked about, I've not discussed stability and change. Take that as and read and make short notes to show how these two, the interplay between stability and change takes place in human development. And then research about personality, our uniqueness. Each person is unique in their own different way. And there are quite a number of people who have been able to say something about our human uniqueness. The first one is Sigmund Freud. Read about that theory. Make notes on the same. And as you make notes, remember it has two parts to it to explain personality. We have the psychosexual stages and the role of instincts. And then the second one is the one by Erik Erikson that talks about the influence of internal factors and the social interaction of each and every person around their environment, and how these two shape the personality or the uniqueness. We have got to the end of this lesson. Thank you for being there. I've been your lecturer, Dr. Susan Macharia. Thank you so much. Stay safe.
These televised lectures supplement our robust online learning going on our MKU online platform. You can view more on our televised lectures via our online platform. We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.